Here's the 1-2. Jankowski to Schumann. And the ground ball will end things. A 3-2 win for the Oakland Athletics. One more win for the Oakland fans.
A W on a day that everybody in the Bay needed one.
And as the 2024 MLB season closes, so does the time for the Oakland A's in Oakland as they move to Las Vegas. The Oakland A's are a historic baseball franchise. Their defect is their owner sucks. And don't get me wrong, I love Moneyball. I think it's one of the best movies ever, let alone baseball movies, and obviously it worked. This video is not about Moneyball being a bad movie, or the 2002 Oakland A's being bad. This is about the A's ownership and how they ruined a franchise. Moneyball was such a perfect movie, one of my favorites ever, but most importantly, a real moment in baseball. It told the story of a small market team in Oakland finding a way, at all costs, to compete with the much bigger teams.
The problem we're trying to solve is that there are rich teams and there are poor teams. Then there's 50 feet of crap, and then there's us. It's an unfair game.
The A's, led by GM Billy Beane, realize they can't play like the Yankees inside the front office because they'll lose to them on the baseball field every single time. They simply didn't have the money to compete. The owners soon realized they didn't have to spend any money as a small market.
Now, what we might be able to do is recreate him. Recreate him in the aggregate.
Whenever they built a star or a homegrown player, instead of paying them, they shipped them out for prospects and smaller, cheaper players and the chance to develop more stars and recreate them in the aggregate. They shifted their focus from expensive sluggers to cheap journeymen. Why?
Because he gets on base.
Moneyball straight up works. But the bigger problem came when the A's changed their methodology. Instead of using Beane's genius blueprint in sabermetrics, their identity became their blueprint. They didn't have to spend any money. They could just exist and make money with such a low payroll, even if that meant sacrificing winning. You have to remember the A's aren't the only small market team. Teams like the Royals or the Guardians or the Rays found success by spending on their developed players and putting faith in their team, and they all have great fan bases, aside from the Rays. Since 2002 and through the times of Billy Beane with the A's, they've never even managed a league average payroll and have never made it back to the World Series, which they've won 9 times throughout their history. The A's had multiple years since 2002 with postseason appearances, but they would get eliminated before winning the pennant and then sell their entire team. The A's have found their limited success, like in 2012 and 2018, with 2 strong cores that looked promising through playoff appearances. However, as you can guess, most of their star players were subsequently traded, and the A's collapsed back down to mediocrity and worse. In 2014, after 3 straight postseason appearances, they traded Cespedes, Donaldson, and Semerzia. After a few more rebuilding years, they had a strong core again with 3 more straight postseason appearances. This time in 2021, they traded Bassett, Chapman, and Olsen and blew it all up again. Every time it looked like they were about to compete, they traded their stars and started over. Frustrating for the fans. Whether it's Cespedes, Donaldson, Simeon, Olsen, Murphy, Chapman, or many more, the A's, or the Triple A's, became a farm team in the majors for other teams to pick players from. The rest of the league was like the old scouts at the table in Moneyball, stuck in their ways, and the A's found that there was an epidemic failure within the game to understand what was really happening. The A's changed their thinking to focus on sabermetrics, and it took the league by storm. However, after many years of this low payroll ball and middling results, the A's became stuck in their ways, refusing to pay players and never building a strong core to keep and develop. If you can't build a strong team, you can't build a winning culture. That's the main problem with Moneyball. It works. It straight up works, but only for a limited time. Adapt or die. In the midst of all this chaos within the franchise, the A's have found a way to develop legit talent, but almost all of them end up traded. Moneyball was a success to Billy Beane and the A's at the time. Look how it spread amongst the league. Look at Chaim Bloom and what he did with the Tampa Bay Rays. If you build that cycle of trading stars for prospects and trading those prospects for more prospects, it works. The definition of winning changes by franchise. For the A's or even the Tampa Bay Rays, having a decent 80-win year with bright stars and most importantly a cheap payroll is a success in the eyes of the front office. When you move to the Boston Red Sox or the LA Dodgers, they would consider that a failure of a season and the fans would riot for change. In fact, that's exactly what happened when Boston hired the mastermind behind the Rays, Chaim Bloom. He did exactly what he was promised, and the Sox now have a stellar farm system. He did the opposite that Boston was used to under Dave Dombrowski at GM. Dombrowski would trade their farm for rings. Some would argue Bloom would trade the rings for a farm. Either way, Bloom was pushed out of Boston because the Sox are not a franchise comfortable with mediocrity. The A's are a team that made the choice to save their money, lower their payroll, and sacrifice expensive competitive teams for young and cheap teams. The definition of working changes by franchise. The 2024 A's were projected to be the worst team in MLB history and definitely the worst team in a long time. However, it was more of a bittersweet story as a ton of the young players rallied around the team and had a mediocre season at best. It seemed as if the owners were actively trying to lose, and the fans, along with the island of misfit toys of a roster, were doing everything they could to keep the team alive. A real-life major league situation. There was boycotts mid-season, a reverse boycott, terrible fan reaction, and almost every game was filled with sell the team chants and protesters. Even players got in on it, and many even believe Ruiz, a promising player, was sent down because of it. But the A's had a ton of promising players. Mason Miller, a diabetic pitcher, had an amazing year as a closer, as one of the fastest throwing pitchers in the league. Lawrence Butler had an amazing second half, tearing the cover off the ball, hitting for a ton of power. And Brent Rooker had a huge year, hitting .293 with 39 home runs. All of these guys, Miller, Ruiz, Butler, Rooker, all looked incredible, and they would be the future faces of a franchise somewhere else. But in Oakland, the A's fans are only waiting for them to suit up in another uniform. Overall, last season the A's were surrounded by negativity and were poised by many to be the worst team in baseball. Although they definitely didn't come close to the postseason, or the worst team in the league thanks to the Chicago White Sox, might have a video on that soon, a lot of young players stepped up and the A's closed the year on a slightly more positive note as they close out their time in Oakland.
There was an effort over more than a decade to find a stadium solution in Oakland. It was John Fisher's preference. It was my preference. As a matter of fact, the first trip I made after I was elected commissioner was to Oakland to talk to John about trying to get something done there. It didn't happen. A lot of back and forth, but the fact of the matter is there was never a deal in Oakland.
Talking la 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 like this is business as usual. It's not.
Benedict Arnold, Brutus, John Fisher, Robert Manfred. These are all the names of traitors who betrayed the people who trusted them. And after years of delegation and arguments, the A's were officially announced to be moving yet again. After moving from Philadelphia to Kansas City to Oakland, the A's will officially move to Las Vegas. And not just that, but also Sacramento in a minor league ballpark first.
Be able to watch some of the greatest players in baseball, whether they be athletics players or Aaron Judge and others, launch home runs out of this very intimate, the most intimate ballpark in all of Major League Baseball for the next 3 years.
What the fuck are you talking about, man?
It is utterly stupid for the A's to leave Oakland to play in a minor league park in Sacramento for at least 3 years before they even think about moving to Vegas. We've all seen how difficult it is to build organic MLB fan bases in Tampa and Miami or Arizona. MLB is fighting for fans right now, and throwing away 57 years of a great fan base to start over in a transient place like Las Vegas is not the best choice. From the 50s to the 70s, there was a ton of franchises hopping all around the country. Baseball attendance declined for 20 years in that time span. When a franchise moves, they're throwing away lifetimes of a fan base development and starting over, especially in a place like Vegas, where it's mostly based off tourist economy. It is a ridiculous decision to treat a franchise with such a storied history and loyal fan base this way. They're one of the most accomplished franchises in the league, which almost seems hard to believe now. Oakland loses their third team in recent years, leaving them with 0 teams left. But the A's were killed by greed. Some people blame the city, and some blame Manfred or John Fisher, but these people at the top took the team from Oakland. There were many stadiums in development, and none of them worked, and now they're moving to a money-rich city in Vegas. R.I.P. the Oakland A's. The real Moneyball was not just Bean with the roster. The real Moneyball was Fisher with the franchise itself in the palm of his hands. He is a billionaire pinching pennies with the A's. It will be sad to see the A's leave Oakland with all their history and move to Vegas, but it's official, their time in Oakland is over. Baseball means a lot more to fans than just watching a team on TV. And I think they will lose a lot of fans moving to Vegas, as many loyal fans won't follow them there. So I will end the video on that note. Thank you guys for watching. Let me know what you thought about the video and your thoughts on the A's, and subscribe to help me on that grind to 1K. See you next time.